All right. So, um, apologize. My name is Rebekah Law. I am currently, you read that right. I'm a recruiter, a former developer. I was a developer for about 5 or 6 years. And I want to talk to you today a little bit about this dark side that I saw as being a recruiter and what that was like, and why I might have then decided to join that side, even though I saw it as being a very negative thing at one point in my career. So a little bit backstory about me. So life as a developer, I worked in a number of different stacks, as well as a number of different industries. And so what I did was I kind of popped around every couple of years trying to really find that job satisfaction, and went from stack to industry and kind of tried my hand at a lot of different things to see what fit me and what worked. And the thing I loved about being a developer was that problem solving aspect, that point where that we've all experienced, which is like you're coming across this bug or this new feature and you try everything you can and it's not working, and suddenly it works. You broke 10 things, other 10 things in the process, but like one thing finally works, and so you're like, yes. So I loved that. But there was seemed like something was missing. And I loved that environment and the people aspect of that, probably the most. And so when I had tried these different stacks and tried these different industries and not really come up with just like, I'm super excited to go into work every day, I thought, okay, what's missing? What's different? And I stumbled upon this area, this field called industrial organizational psychology. And it kind of, the light bulb went on, where this is an industry all surrounded by everything like psychology related to the workplace. So, how you select the right people, how you attract the right people, how do you train them, develop them, motivate them, develop teams. And this leadership aspect, I'm assuming that most of y'all have come into contact, and if you're early on in your career, you will come into contact with this at some point in your career, which is there are times where people move into these leadership or management roles and they're just like really good, or they're really good coders, but they don't make good leaders. And so with this psychology, I literally quit my job and went to school full time to learn about this, because I realized that what I loved about the tech space is like making things better. And I wanted to figure out how to do that from an organizational perspective. Um, so when I finished school, it was like, okay, well, what's the next step? This developer turned IO psychologist, like, what do I do? So kind of naturally, some of my contacts were like, recruiting. Why don't you go into recruiting? And I was like, no way in the world will I ever become a recruiter. And even when I sort of toyed with the idea, I was like, nope. And here's why. So I really truly felt like recruiting was the dark side. And again, it doesn't really matter where you are in your career process. The reason I think this is important is because you will probably experience some of these things at any point in your career. So why did I feel like it was the dark side? One thing was I felt like it was just about a submit. Someone just had a quota they needed to meet, and I was the person that they were trying to do that with. They led with a job first. If you haven't already, you will get a LinkedIn email call that says, hey, I just got this job in, and I see that you're a developer, so that can mean you can do anything. I don't know if you saw my list. I didn't have Java listed anywhere there, but I would often get like Java jobs, and they're like, you can make twice as much as you make right now, and I'm just like, you didn't even take the time. Like, you don't know my skill set. Like, you clearly don't even know like what tech stack I work in, and so I just felt like it was just about the job, like just about that to them, and that they didn't take the time. And then always at the end, it's like, and if not you, perhaps somebody else, and you're like, what? Now you want me to do your job for you, and just again, that impersonal relationship is my perception about what I thought recruiters were. Um, and I was like, there must be a catch. Like, no one does anything in life for free. So what is that? So ultimately, it really looks like this to me, just like, Anyone who knows me knows I'm terrified in snakes, but I felt like this was just really like this, like, put your trust in me. And I'm like, no, like, I don't know you. Now, in their defense, just like I was untrusting of them and felt all these things about them, I also didn't actually take the time to talk to them and to get to know them. So what started to change? The first thing that started to change and why maybe that shift was I actually met some recruiters. I actually became friends with some recruiters, and they did listen to my story. They wanted to know about my experiences. And so I was like, oh, well, maybe they're not terrible people, you know? And so that was kind of the start of that shift for me. And the reason why I even want to have this conversation with you today is because there were things I wish I had known as being a developer, and why I'm such a big advocate of my own fields now, is because I didn't realize all of the job roles that recruiters held. Good recruiters. Every industry has kind of the not good, but here are the good roles that people should hold, as opposed to this view that I had, which was just they're just sales, they're sleazy, they're trying to just make a buck, you know. One of the roles that I now hold as a recruiter, and a good recruiter hold, is that career counselor. So they really talk through what your experience has been. Maybe you've been doing something for 10 years and you have zero desire to do that in the future. So instead of throwing a job at you where I'm like, hey, you have 10 years experience that, like, what about this? I'm actually taking the time to find out that, oh, you have no desire to do that anymore. But I wouldn't have known that without a conversation. So my job is to listen really deeply to my candidates and find that out and kind of talk them through that, as well as talk through what does the future hold. Like, so what is that environment that you thrive in, and maybe ask you questions that you don't normally think about, like, what's that work environment look like, what's that those compensation needs that you have, as well as, like, I know the market, and so kind of being like, that's reasonable compensation, or hey, you could actually ask for more because you're worth more, you know. And having somebody in your pocket to kind of talk you through that process. The other thing is, we're a marketer, so that sales piece that I kind of viewed, recruiters, I didn't think about the fact that they would do that for me too. So we know, because I've had that deep conversation with you, then I know how to highlight you in the best way possible. I also have a really good relationship with the client. And so I know, like, what to point out, and how to help you tailor your story, what kind of compensation to describe, and just kind of be able to maybe even explain job gaps, which is something really difficult for a lot of people to explain. So the other kind of role that we play is matchmaker. Anyone who's talked to me, especially like if any of you are my candidates, I'm sure you've heard me using a dating analogy. We're the people that, like, you talk to before the interview, we're the people you talk to after. Like, well, what are you wearing? Like, here are the things to expect. So you don't walk in a room and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know there was a whiteboarding, exercise. I can kind of prepare you for that. That a lot of times when you're just applying to a job, you don't know who the hiring manager is. You don't know that their biggest pet peeves is somebody that wears brown shoes. I don't think I've ever had anything that minuscule, but it's that idea, right? You have somebody that can kind of know what you're like, know what the client's like, match those, and then help you through that dating process. And even after the interview, it's actually very important for you to debrief about, like, well, did they meet those qualifications that you were looking for? It's not just about a submit. The other thing that we are is that lawyer, so that negotiator for you. We are also your advocate. And so sometimes companies come to us and be like, man, they bombed this, or like, what did you see? And we can, like, talk them through that and say, like, this is what we see. We've vetted this person, and they're good, and this is why you should give them a chance. I have oftentimes had candidates to ask me, like, wait, they want to do an interview with me even with my job history? Yeah, because they trust us. So we're a trusted client advisor. We marketed you well. We're your advocate. That trusted client advisor really comes into play too when it comes to, you might not know about the job opportunity because they don't post it online. So sometimes our companies come to us and say, hey, I don't have a job description, but I'm needing someone to fill this, but I'm not going to put on a jobs board. I don't have time to do that. And they trust us to then go find that talent, or be like, yeah, actually, I talked to somebody last week. I think they'd be a really good fit for this. And so you kind of have that sort of insider knowledge that a lot of people don't have if you're not working with a recruiter. And again, a good recruiter. So those are just some of the highlights and some of the things, and even that matchmaker process where you're talking about like going into the interview. I have plenty of interview prep conversation, like, how do I talk about my weakness? How do I talk about the fact that I just got fired? And having that mentor person that can walk you through that. So that's kind of my journey and how I shifted my perception of like the dark side to the light side, and the things that I personally wish I had known as being like when I was a developer, to have somebody guide me and mentor me through my career. So trust your agent. The thing I loved about being a developer is helping people. And that's what I get to do. I get to help people. So I get to be your agent. And so I hope that's helpful. I'm a tech recruiter, and that's my information. Rebekah is my long name. And please feel free to reach out to me anytime, and just to talk shop, talk tech, any of that. Thanks.